this lesson, I'm going to show you how to make this stone hopscotch. For the stone hopscotch, you're going to need 10 flat stones that are large enough for a foot to fit on them. And you want to make sure they're flat so that they don't turn and tip when you're jumping on them, because you don't want to twist your ankle and hurt yourself while you're playing. Luckily, behind my house, I have an abundance of stones, just nestled in the leaves in the woods. So here's a good one here. It's nice and flat, kind of big. So I'll have to clean this off with the hose and get the moss and the dirt off of it before I start painting. But this looks like a great stone. You're going to need 10 of them because you have to go 1 through 10 for your hopscotch. So lay out the stones the way that you want them before you determine what number stones you're going to make. And then you can start painting.
Makes light blue.
So I'm just painting my numbers freehand, just using a brush. I lightly draw the number first, and then I go in and paint it a little bit thicker so it's really bold. But if you're a little concerned about your handwriting or you want to practice a little bit, you could draw with chalk on the rocks first and then paint them in, so that your numbers might be a little bit more perfect than if you just tried to go for it freehand like I'm doing. So you're going to want to let your paint dry overnight in case there are any thick spots or bubbles or globs that haven't quite dried right after you're done painting. So let your paint dry overnight. And remember, you want to use acrylic paint or house paint or something that's permanent so that when it rains or we get weather, the paint doesn't wash off. So I've laid out my stones in a nice flat spot in my yard. And you could leave the stones just like this and pull them out whenever you feel like playing with them. But I've decided that I want to make mine more of a permanent walkway and keep the hopscotch here permanently. So I'm going to dig out the turf underneath the stones and place the stones in the ground so that when the grass grows up, I can mow over them. But make sure you ask your parents or the adults in the house that it's okay to do this before you start digging. So to know how big to make your hole when you're cutting out the turf, just keep your stone where it is and take your garden spade and go all the way around the stone. And if this is something you need help with, you could ask a parent or an adult or an older sibling to help you with this. Because around here, there are so many rocks in the ground that sometimes digging a hole can be quite difficult. And then you'll just move the stone when you're ready to start digging out the turf. So now we need to get the turf out of the hole that we just made, or the circle that we just made for our stone. You can use the spade. I'm kind of finding it easier to use this little trowel because we don't need to dig too deep, just the thickness of the stone. So I'm going to put my trowel just under where the grass roots are and pull out the turf. And what we're trying to do is make the hole just deep enough so that the top of the stone is level with the top of where the grass starts to grow, or where the very top of the topsoil is here. So, and it pulls out kind of easily because the grass keeps the soil together in clumps. And then I can just use my trowel here to pull out any rocks and smooth out the area, so I can make it kind of level. And of course, I've hit a rock, so I've got to dig that out. So there we go. So once you have your hole dug, and it's about the depth of the stone, you fill it back in. Now, if you find that your stone's a little too deep, you can always put a little soil back in and get it up to the right height. Since this is kind of a rustic looking path, you know, I'm not getting a level out and making sure everything's level. I just want it so that they're roughly level with the ground, so that when the grass does grow back in, I'm able to mow over them. So, of course, there's a little bit of a gap around my stone. So I'm going to take some of the soil that I dug out here. Oh, and here's a root probably from my hydrangea bush right next to it. Stick back in there, and we'll fill in around the stone until the ground is level. And you might need to break up little bits of turf and things to use to fill in, but that's perfectly fine. Because eventually once it rains and get a little sunshine and things start to grow again, this will look like it's always been here. So now we have all our stones laid into the ground. I think it looks kind of cute. So Amelia, you want to give it a try? Excellent. So here's our stone hopscotch. If you would like to share your project with us, you can email photos to info, at catskillartsociety.org, and we'll put your photos up on our Facebook and Instagram pages so we can share them with everybody who follows our social media pages.